Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of February the 12th till 18th, 2024. Now, this is not an easy energy, neither collectively nor individually. But when I say not easy, it may not be necessarily true in the sense that this energy actually discriminates. Of course, don't understand it from a legal perspective or a very human perspective. Rather, understand it according to your archetype. Very powerful Saturnian and also Uranian archetypes might find this energy much easier to navigate, while for other people, this might bring a dose of reality check, which causes pain and which causes a certain kind of disillusionment. But this is where we had very recently a new moon in this part of the sky, Aquarius, a part of the sky which is greatly highlighted, especially this week, because last week it was the sun and the moon, new moon in that part of the sky along with Pluto. But I'm not going to speak about Pluto because there's so much that has already been said. However, this week it is Mars and Venus which join the Sun and Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, which gives it a very different and much more intense emphasis. So things are gonna be quite chaotic, but this chaos brings, as I said earlier, a very powerful reality check. Now, even without going into details on first hand, what is the saving grace? Dropping into our heart, dropping into basically the most pure expression of our soul, which requires deep, deep self knowledge, and which also requires how open we are to the big reality check moments of life. And the reason you might think that, well, Mars conjunct Pluto, Venus conjunct Pluto, this energy isn't all that rare. With Venus, it happens every year. With Mars, every 2 years, maybe less or so. However, this is where Pluto is in new ground. And Pluto is more or less this year staying in that new ground. So this makes the expression of these conjunctions something that we never experienced before. So let us get into detail. And of course, this is going to be a long recording. So please bear with me. Please listen to the end if you can, because otherwise it won't make sense. And this is where I have to emphasize the coping mechanisms. I have to emphasize why the pain of this energy is actually a blessing in disguise. And of course, it is also this week when we have Valentine's Day. Well, it's going to be quite a Aquarian and Uranian Valentine's Day this year. So let me share my screen and let's get into the details straight away. Now, as you can see, we begin the week with a very dual kind of energy, if that even makes sense. And why do I say that? Well, on first hand, we have a Moon and Neptune conjunction. Neptune in its home sign of Pisces, the dreams, the psychological but also psychic awareness. This is where it evokes who it is that we are and were through our journeys of this lifetime, more emotionally speaking, and also our connection to source. Dreams at this moment might be, I'm not even sure how to word this, where in a dream state, we might see the reality of what's going on in our lives and in the world, generally speaking. So we might even feel it, that okay, a dream, but am I really sleeping? Because it feels like in the dream state, I'm more awake than, even in a conscious state. So this is when the Neptune and Moon conjunction, which happens every single month, of course, is very, very unusual. It is not the escapist, it is not the deeply magical type of conjunction that we are so used to. And I don't know about other people, but I am always looking forward to the monthly Neptune and Moon conjunction, because it is so healing and so calming in so very many different ways. However, this time it can be quite intense in a reality check way, because even in our dreams we might see the reality. We might be, even if those dreams are symbolic, are, let's say, prophetic, but the symbolisms are very powerfully psychoanalytical and not the usual mystical. So when you see symbols in dreams, animals, etc., etc., it would be better to understand it from a deeply psychoanalytical perspective. Now, on the other hand, we begin the week also with Mars an anaretic degree of Capricorn, and this is quite an intense energy in so very many ways. On one hand, Capricorn, we all know what is happening in Capricorn. So Capricorn, top-down authority, government, centralized power, leadership, the structures of a company, the structures of our own lives, the customs, the traditions, the stability of our everyday lives, our career, our job, our soul path, our basically everything. And also Capricorn, the stage of manifestation. And erratic Mars is magnifying everything that is already burning, like the house burning in that area of life, but also on the world stage. Now, let me just give you the most obvious example of this. Not so long ago, Hungary's president resigned for deeply moral reasons. That might be one of the most beautiful and integrate symbols of this anaretic Mars, because she understood. I'm not sure if she understood the astrology, but she understood the divine's messages, if that makes sense. But this can play out in very different ways, where top-down authority is like, the Four of Pentacles tarot card, the symbol where the figure grips onto the stability, the symbolism of greed, the symbolism of rigidity, the symbolism of deep fixedness that cannot be let go of. We will see that play out on the world stage in so very many ways. So I don't even want to mention much more about this. However, it also holds an outer sign conjunction with Pluto. So this just foreshadows the conjunction that Mars is going to be holding with Pluto the next day. But the next day, the conjunction is not exact mathematically. So in 2-3 days after, depending on where you are on the planet. But that energy is radically different, because when Mars enters into the sign of Aquarius, that's already the human collective. That's already, basically everyone, everyone and everything that is having a certain kind of influence and activity on the collective. And of course, the internet, and of course, common principles, goals, ideologies that link people together. However, Aquarius, the dual dichotomous nature of it, both the individual and the collective are going to be affected at the same time, but the expression of this Mars is going to be different. And also, this moment is historic almost. Why? Because this is the first time when Mars, in a serious manner, activates that 0 degree of Aquarius, where on the 21st of December 2020, the Jupiter and Saturn, the great conjunction took place, opening a new paradigm. Mars is the activator. So we are going to be understanding everything that happened in our lives, happened in the world, and happened, even in our higher minds, principles, ideologies, what we believe in, what we hope in, what we wish to have in the future, etc., etc. It will show us a much, much, much more clear picture of that. Now, also, simply energetically speaking, Mars is not very comfortable in the sign of Aquarius. Why? Well, Mars is exalted in the sign of Leo. Aquarius is the opposite sign. So basically, in Leo, Mars can be very, very self-centered, and Mars loves that. In Aquarius, Mars has to be multifunctional because it has to serve the collective as well and the individual as well, so it cannot have its singularity. However, I'm going to be speaking about this in just a moment when we get to the 13th and 14th of February. But before we get there, there is also another energy that I would like to speak about. Venus starting to hold a sextile with Neptune. Usually, this is a wonderful energy. This is where Venus in the sign of Capricorn, what we desire, what we need, what we have, and what we want to do with it, and that becomes real on one hand. This is also good for magic, for spirituality, for dreams, for arts. However, in this context, it is more like, and I'm so sorry to say this, a lie. Why? Because we cannot ignore the Plutonian energy in the sign of Aquarius. And why do I say this? It is because what the collective wants to project on us, maybe those needs and desires and those Venusian expressions seem to us in an illusionary way much more important than our core Venusian elements, if that even makes sense. So this energy is where let us not immerse into fantasy, into something that is not ultimately very real, because it will, chances are, definitely let us down. Usually a sextile is really, really positive, but this is where the positivity can come from not giving into the illusion, because a sextile is an aspect which turns harmonious when we meet its requirements. It's not a free energy like the trine. The blessing pops up and there it is. The sextile needs to be turned into a blessing. So this is the rare case when let's not do it. Let's not follow the illusion. Let's not follow the, how should I say this? The Don Quixote following the windmills, Let us use Pluto to pierce through the illusion. Now, another energy that is very, very powerful is Saturn still holding a sextile with Jupiter. Now, I spoke about this in previous weeks. This is ultimately grounding, but this is when Saturn actually starts to cover new ground. And that is very important from a karmic perspective. This is when karma plays out in a much more serious way than it has done until now. And Pisces is the past. Pisces is exactly, especially with Saturn in it, what is our ancestral heritage? And I'm not gonna interpret this further, because just put it into context. What is my land? What is your land? Who was here first? So this becomes even more serious. Jupiter is the planet of justice in the sign of Taurus, earthly justice, secular justice. So Yes, we can all see that playing. Also, another energy is Chiron starting its conjunction with the North Node. This conjunction is going to last all through February. It is not exact yet, and neither it is going to get exact this week, but it's already heavily operational. Now, I'm not going to detail this because I have a special recording dedicated only for this Chiron North Node conjunction. Check it out if you're interested, if you're guided. But this is also a massive, massive game changer, both individually and also collectively. But this is where, with the Chiron conjunct this North Node in Aries, I would like to emphasize much more on the individual expression. Why? Because Aries is individual, and the individual is who sets the tone for the collective ultimately. The collective is powerless without the individual. So again, check that recording out if you are so guided. Now let us move on where things are starting to get serious as we navigate through the week. So here we can see that we are on the 13th. Mars has already moved into the sign of Aquarius. Now, this is very, very important because this is time for Mars, time for action. This is when whatever has been stirring in the collective, especially the Aquarian expression, the freedom movement, the revolution, equality, non-discrimination, and very important collective moves and projects and everything that is meant for the future, it gets even more serious than before. And since this is already an operational conjunction with Pluto, because both of them are technically at 0 degree, it's just the minute that it's not exact. Mars is the combustor. Not only that, both of these planets co-rule the sign of Scorpio. Transformation, but also the destructiveness many times of Scorpio, especially collectively speaking. Now, around the time when Pluto was discovered, humanity used certain weapons which were unimaginable until then, and the devastation caused still echoes. No, Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Historically speaking, that's very clear because the big lessons. But actually, energetically speaking, whatever happened back then, like the atomic bombs and stuff like that, that energy is still alive. That energy is, in a way, immortal. It is where it was so powerful that it reverberates in space-time, if that makes sense. So why am I telling you this? Because that was the moment when Pluto was integrated into our collective consciousness. I know that Pluto made very powerful impacts on the collective and on the world in previous Pluto cycles, but for example, in the 17th something, when Pluto was in the sign of Aquarius, but Pluto was not known to humanity. So basically, that is different because Pluto was like an energy totally invisible in the background. In Christian mythology, they say that devils hide behind the rocks because they do not want the light to be cast on them, because once it does, they're visible. And when they're visible, their position, their power is immediately compromised. They're either much more uglier than they truly are, but that becomes visible to them as well, or they're not as ugly anymore and they cannot intimidate anyone. Put this analogy into context. But Mars activates Pluto. and this is in Aquarius. So let us list up what can possibly happen. Well, Mars and Pluto are each other's octaves. Pluto being Mars's higher octave. So this means aggression. And this means where the aggression is not necessarily physical, even though if we look at the world stage, there is a lot of physicality going on there. The aggression can be mental. The aggression can be technological. This immediately will activate one of Pluto's long-term goals in Aquarius, where it has to highlight everything that is immoral, corrupt, or very, very highly dangerous in technology. So we will see that play out on the world stage without a shadow of a doubt. Then there is the internet. Something is gonna be on fire, Mars. Something is gonna be heavily contested. This is where for a few, perhaps days, the internet is gonna be like the enemy of humanity. But this is a symbolism. Don't take it literally. Something happens with the internet or on the internet or anything that has to do with, the usage of the internet. Pluto ultimately is many times the planet which signifies the end of something. So this may represent internet cut out, or in certain parts of the world, the internet becomes banned, or Pluto is the planet of the shadow. Heavy manipulation, heavy control. I probably don't need to even develop this further because it's very obvious. This is where whatever happened, in the US Senate, where the CEO of a certain social media company was really barraged by criticism and stuff like that. Well, that will reactivate one way or another. But at the same time, this is where we will see new technologies out there, which on one hand were hidden from us, Pluto, and on the other hand, they have a red flag on them. But should they really exist in a, how should I say, an on-chained manner? Because Aquarius, yes, it is freedom, but that freedom must serve the collective. If freedom is the opposite, if freedom is a threat to the collective, well, then is when we see Aquarius's Saturnian side, because Saturn is the ancient ruler of Aquarius. And also, Mars activating Pluto is gonna show, especially in the world of astrology, that yes, Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, stuff like that, but Saturn will keep its ground, because Aquarius cannot function in a totally non-Saturnian way. Because let me give you an example. Saturn is the basic structure. Saturn is that which all of us must respect. Otherwise, Uranus is total chaos. Everything will descend into chaos. So this is one of the weeks when Saturn, and understand this in a symbolic way, Saturn will rule Aquarius much more than Uranus. It has to, because otherwise it's big trouble. Now, this energy can also represent certain big financial moves out there in the world stage. Why? Because on one hand, Venus is closing up. Venus is going to end. Venus is going to join this conjunction. Venus is money, currency, etc., etc. But Pluto is big money. Venus is, let's say, the flow of money. But Pluto is the big money. Pluto is like World Bank, the assets of a multi-whatever company. So Pluto is the massive money. And Pluto is the symbol of the rich and powerful and the big elite. Mars combusting this, it will reveal them. through their actions. So this energy is gonna be very, very intense. Also, Venus will start perfecting her sextile with Neptune, also on the 13th. So again, what I said earlier, let us be very, very careful with illusion. Now, let us go to a personal level here, because on one hand, the moon conjuncts Chiron and the North Node. So we are feeling very powerfully the need for independence, sovereignty, to progress in our journeys, with our goals, with our needs, with our necessity, and also self-image. What we need to transform ourselves into for authenticity and inner truth purpose. So we are feeling that very, very intensely. But at the same time, Mars and Pluto conjunction in Aquarius, our hopes, our dreams, but also if we consider Saturn ruling Aquarius, however we built up our lives until this moment, ideologically, mentally, our social connections, this is where when we will see that which is not working, hence the disillusionment, the big disillusionment. We will see this Aquarian hype that started very intensely, after 21st of December 2020, after the Great Conjunction. Spirit tribes, soul tribes, friendships, relationships, everything on the internet. And this is where it's not the internet that's the problem. The problem is that it's not real. Because everyone's social media or everyone's internet image, by its very nature, cannot be real. Why? Because what is real? This is real. Aries is real. Aries is that which we are deeply within the core of our being. Chiron is there, North Node is there, Moon is there, Aries is there but not conjunct, thank goodness. But that is where, to express that which we feel deeply now, that we are in such a deep way that it shatters like a wrecking ball all our principles, all our aspirations, all the Aquarian hype. We cannot express it. Why? Because that is impossible to express in not a real way. Aries, our actions speak on our behalf. Aries, the energy that we emanate, but in a physical way. Not that we need physical contact, but when you see a person standing next to you and they speak next to you, and the spontaneity of that's real. That's when your instinct, your innermost self sees the person. A virtual persona only mimics that. And here I'm not even talking about manipulation and the fakeness of it all. Let's say that it's actually authentic, where the person tried to actually project their most truthful self-image on the internet, social media, or as I said, it doesn't even have to be the internet, virtually, in any way, shape, and form. Because this existed before the internet. Like, how many writers out there use the pseudo name, or media, journalism, big authors, science, big names in science before the internet. They wrote, and what they wrote was one, and not what they wrote, their mannerism, their their personality shining through. That was just one part of them. They could not express their true authenticity because for that they would have needed to be present, if you know what I mean. So this applies even in this day and age. We get disillusioned because we see that we cannot express who we truly are in a very real way because the impossibility of it. In theory, it's possible. In theory, you know, we try our very best and other people perceive us as open as they are, yet still that is not 1,000,000% true in any way. We cannot express fully, but neither is the other person not able to perceive that which we truly want to project in a very authentic and real way. And this causes at this moment powerful disillusionment. We cannot blame anyone, neither the self, neither them, but we just face the fact that these connections, these tribes, these alliances, these are on one hand just virtual. Real life, our instincts, the lived experience of life calls upon us. Now, adding the fact that Venus is nearing this, and actually not nearing this, she holds an outer sign conjunction, and it's close coming up to Valentine's Day, and Venus in Aquarius, um, dating apps. We see that we don't have the capacity to actually judge who another person is. No matter how hard we could try, it will always be a risk because we cannot perceive them in a real way no matter what we do. Only if we spend physically time with them. You know what I mean? And even that, sometimes you need years. Sometimes you need 20 years, marry certain marriages, and you won't know who that person is. So Pluto is this very strong level of truth where we need to surrender to that which is simply not within our power, neither is it ever gonna be. Why do I say neither is it ever gonna be? Because virtual is virtual. The human existence, the human being, the human journey is really not about virtual. Why? Now, this may sound a bit extreme, but let's say when we are outside of body, when we're just a soul, all of that is virtual, you know? That is virtual in a divine way, because by virtual, anything is possible over there. Any knowledge, anything comes to that soul like this in a millisecond. But what does being over there not have and being here have? The heart. If we want to understand our heart, our deepest emotion, the very core of the being that we are, we do need the heart experience. And the heart is Leo, and Leo is the opposite sign of Aquarius, hence dropping into the heart space with pain, with sometimes love, with excitedness, with everything that Leo is. We need all of those experiences, the myriad of them, in order to know who we are in our hearts. Because who we are in our hearts does not come easily. That needs lived experience. This is where, even if we are, let's say, the best psychic in the world, we are telepaths, like in a sci-fi way, or we are empaths in a Star Trek way. That is zero. For the heart, that is zero experience. We need to go through pain. We need to go through joy. We need to go through passion. We need to go through playfulness. We need to go through humor. We'll need to go through sorrow, because otherwise we don't know who we are within our hearts. We can't know, because that is why the earthly plane, the earth school actually exists, to show us who we are in the heart. or let me give you a different example. Ever since I do believe the 1930s, in spirituality, there was this hype of the angelic movement, angels and stuff like that. Why are angels inferior to us? They don't have a heart. They cannot have a heart. Compassion for these angelic beings is just Piscean. What does that mean? The spirit of communion. Everything is one. And this is where, for example, the Buddhist philosophies depict this in such a beautiful way. But that doesn't mean they have a heart. That doesn't mean that they can feel compassion towards humans in a very earthly way. And this is why, certain angelic entities need to be summoned and evoked to the earthly plane, because they are incompatible exactly with the heart, except one angelic being, Emmanuel. So I'm not going to get into detail with this. And this is what all of us are going to be reminded of. The internet, social media, and the image of social media does not depict who we are or anyone else is on a heart level. You know what I mean? This is where instinct, intuition, and heavy foresight, Aquarius, cannot really help us. We can only navigate if we have the real experience. Now, where does this lead us to? It leads us to life is a risk, and it's okay to risk. Leo is the sign of the risk. Aquarius is the sign of stability, Saturn. So this is where we simply cannot make plans. We simply cannot make strategies where it's safe and sound. We won't get hurt. I'm sure that that person who I'm going to meet on the internet is good for me. I'm sure that my investment or that job that I'm applying for, or whatever, is 100% sure to play out in a safe and sound way, or that it doesn't hurt me, or that I do not repeat the experience of the past. There is absolutely no security. Life is meant to be a big risk. But Pluto, Mars conjunction, what do they do with this? With this principle? Well, this is a tiny, tiny bit cruel, because they show us that the more security we want in our lives, the more we lock the cage and throw away the key. We imprison ourselves in security. We imprison ourselves in the mental sphere. It is exactly the desire of security that causes anxiety, and it is the root of most fears and paranoia and obsession. Because we want security, we want to be safe, we are afraid to suffer, we are afraid to sacrifice, we are afraid of being used. And all of that is absolutely normal and natural to a certain degree. But when we go over that certain degree, that's when we become our own Plutos. That's when we lock in our own Persephone into hell. The hell of fear, the hell of security. Why? Aquarius is fixed air. It's not an easy energy, and it's dichotomous. Security comes with a massive price. But at the same time, the lack of foresight and pure risk comes with the ultimate price. So Aquarian energy needs for us to be expert jugglers, to keep always the balance, because otherwise we will get into one of the two extremes, and both of these extremes is a bad choice, and it's not going to end well. So this is going to teach us that very, very, very powerful lesson. as in regardless of who it is that we are in our archetype, but all of us have this 0 degree of Aquarius in at a certain point in our chart. Which house is it? Is it the self, like first house? What we express, what we put out there from the self is a massive risk, because we risk people misinterpreting it, we risk criticism, or we risk to be ridiculed. Is it the fifth house? Love. Every love connection is a risk, because we have no guarantee that it is gonna play out in the way that we think, or that it's safe in us for us. And let me give you an example. People change and transform Pluto. So even if you find your soulmate, you find whatever, that person or you can change and you can become incompatible. As simple as that. Is it in your seventh house? The contract, maybe the contract which might have to do with some investment, second house, eighth house. Nothing guarantees that it's gonna be, Saturnian, as in to serve you for the long term. Every contract is a risk. You know what I mean? 10th house, career. There is no guarantee that that career is gonna bring you to the podium, let's say. However, with all the examples that I use, there is a big guarantee that you're gonna learn from it, that you will ultimately attract lessons and even the chaos that comes in your life that already exists within you. And on the other hand, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So sometimes evaluating the right measure of risk and going for it leads you to exactly where you need to be in life, while other times the deep wisdom that this risk is simply not worth it for the person I know I am in the deep core of my being. You know what I mean? It's not worth it for me. I don't care if everyone else in the world does something in a certain way. If I am not that, I am gonna choose to be authentic to who I am. Hence, again, we're getting to the conclusion. This Mars-Pluto conjunction is gonna really destabilize these soul tribes, soul connections, internet groups, virtual groups, etc., etc. Why? Because it dawns on us, even collectively, even to the whole group, we don't know each other's hearts. We know each other's ego, principles, etc., but not the heart. So this is why, but the destabilization of this is a blessing in disguise, because with this newfound wisdom, the new groups that are going to form are really going to be, how should I say, real. As in the disillusionment, the knowledge that we are part of a group. Why? Because that Eurythmic song, some of them want to use you, some of them want to be used by you. That is part of human nature. And as long as we accept it, and with our own terms and conditions, that is when things become functional. There are certain things that we will never share with a group. There are other things that we will always share. So this is when this energy teaches us the lesson through this Plutonian expression of how is it safe to be part of groups, in which degree are we part of the human collective, what is our true role there, not necessarily what we aspire to be, but what we actually are and can be, based on our deep genetic configuration, if that the North Node in Aries. And this is also, and I'm so sorry to say, when synchronicities, remember a few weeks ago when everything, this Venus, Mars, except Mercury, of course, touched the galactic center when the universe downloaded. And this week, however, this is where synchronicities will show us the sad truth. What is the sad truth? That they did not prophesize what we thought they did. They only prophesized us, don't believe that which doesn't come from your heart, from the deep core of your heart. This is where the universe leads us to a dead end, exactly to tell us where it is that we should not seek synchronicity. Come from, this is where in the heart mainly, and then externally speaking. So I'm so very sorry for this long philosophy, but this really, really, really needed to be said, because I already know that every spiritual worker out there is gonna get the message in the emails. Why does the universe doing this to me? Is it against me? Why did it not support me when it promised? It didn't promise. You interpreted it as a promise. You know what I mean? So this is where look inside your heart and ask yourself, what does the divine truly want from you? And one of the answers that is going to be the same for every single person, regardless, is to connect you with your heart, connect you with who you are deep inside your heart. And many times that's not love, that can be anger, that can be frustration, that can be dislike, where how many things in life do we like and love because it was projected onto us, because the internet and social media and mainstream media and everything is expert at making us want things that we truly don't want, and no matter who you are, no matter how powerfully aligned with reality you are, there's no, unless you are a hermit and live in the wilderness, all of us are influenced by product, by the comfort that they promise, by this and that and that and that. This is where that is going to be a very powerful disillusionment. What it is that I truly don't want, what it is that I truly do not love, and I thought for many years, or I put it into context, that I did love. And with Venus coming into the picture, this will be true even sexually, sensually, the dream person, etc., etc. And I'm so sorry to say this, even certain already existing partnerships. When I say partnerships, romantic, of course, but job is a partnership, profession is a partnership, friendship is a partnership. So this is where, when it really dawns on us what it is that we do not like. The opposite of this, of course, is also true. We never ever thought or imagined how much we truly love something, and that can come very obvious at this moment. How very much I don't know, you love, like, if this is going on, let's say in the second house, old-fashioned values, the retro, for example, you might have always been let's say, an Aquarian type of person, going always forward, always embracing new trends, not necessarily because you love it all that much, but it is needed to keep up with the times, etc., etc. And maybe that the retro side of you was eclipsed. You just did not know the passion you had for certain retros. Or maybe you are yourself, a part of you a very old-fashioned person with all good old-fashioned values, etc., etc., and you never ever knew this. And this, so as intense, as powerfully disillusioning this aspect is, it has more good sides than bad. Especially if you tune into your wisdom and see the blessing of this truth. So again, let's move forward. Now we are almost, actually we are on Valentine's Day. Now on Valentine's Day, this is when this conjunction becomes exact. So Valentine's Day, let me give you a totally different example of this energy in tune with the Valentine's Day vibe. You never knew your true attraction. Why? Because, you know, modern psychology conditions us. You always thought, again, example with example, that you were attracted to the gentleman, the gallant archetype. Surprise, surprise, you might be actually attracted to the opposite of that. And it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with it because genetics. Something inside of you resonates with that. Not that you are that, but maybe you need that. Like, let me give you an example. Why would you need that? Because that might be the only way you see the true expression of your inner power. Let's say that you are a lady and you're attracted to you, it becomes obvious to you that you have a thing for males who are much more brutal, who are very direct. Let's do this, you know? And there's an inner conflict inside of you. I may not do this, but I feel this attraction so powerfully. Why? Because would you give in to that type of attraction? But of course, judging the situation, you know what I mean? The end result would be that your energy, your expression of love and sensuality would ennoble that person. And you would be shocked that, did I tame the beast? I didn't even do anything. And I tamed the beast. You know what I mean? Sometimes we need to give in to things that are tricky, you know, in the shadows, this Pluto, for us to see our inner power. Or let me give you a totally other example, like 8th house. You were always shy and prude and, you know, and you get attracted to an archetype who is wild and unapologetic and a bit, you know, the type of person mommy warns you not to have connections with. And that person awakes your true sensuality in a way that you will not recognize yourself anymore. On one hand, it can be profoundly healing, and on the other hand, the prudeness is immediately contradicted by something that you live. So you will ask yourself, who am I? Again, you have to juggle these energies to see who you truly are. So this Valentine's Day is going to be really, really special. Also, this is where for single people, you might have suffered from Valentine's Day for many years that I'm always single. I never get asked out. I'm not this and this and this and that. And this Valentine's Day, this is where you see the power in that. This Valentine's Day, you see that, oh my goodness, I'm so fortunate. I have so much power within me. My state of being single and not being asked out is a big blessing in my life because I have power over other people in a way they never have power over me. So this is where it's so very tricky but this Pluto-Mars conjunction will really speak about something very truthful and authentic to us. Now, on the 14th, the moon is conjunct Aries. So this on the world stage does mean big rebellion. Personally speaking, again, this even adds to the Pluto-Mars conjunction. Why? Because authenticity, Aries, an awakening force like nothing else. And there is another energy here, which is a minor energy. And I really don't have time in this horoscope for minor, but still, if you can see, this is where Black Moon Lilith is starting her conjunction with dwarf planet Orcus. Orcus is very similar to Pluto even physically, because it is a system. Pluto Chiron system, Orcus 1 system. Just that Orcus acts radically opposite way than Pluto. It fixes, it re-educates, it doesn't want to terminate. It wants to put it back into its place. So Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Virgo, this is where sometimes Virgo discrimination and judging things based on your own Lilith, sometimes that is very useful. So now we can truly move on, because basically this was Valentine's Day. On the 15th, the moon conjuncts Jupiter. This is very important because Jupiter is the planet of law, planet of justice, planet which rules over, international stuff. Why international stuff regarding law? Because it is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. There is going to be something legal, something legislative, or something which has to do with trials that might really amp our emotions. And on the other hand, whatever happened the previous days, it sinks in. It really sinks in, because Jupiter is also the planet of wisdom. This is when we have the eureka moment. Not in a Uranian way, but in a Jupiterian way. This is when we accept something, good or bad, painful or joyous, because Taurus, the five senses, but this energy is that of acceptance. Moving on to the 16th, we have Venus in an erratic degree of Capricorn. Remember when Mars was here at the very beginning of the week? Now Venus is money, what we love, sensuality, the pleasure principle. In the sign of Capricorn, it becomes obvious that which is not possible and is never going to be possible, perhaps empty promises or deception or fakeness coming in a Capricornian way, top-down authority, or sometimes we are the bosses of our own lives. We promised ourselves something that is ultimately not rooted in our truth. For example, we cannot do that. We cannot achieve it. We cannot have it. We cannot. And now it becomes obvious that we cannot, and we abandon it. We discard it, even if it leaves a void in our lives. Or Venus in the sign of Capricorn, authority. It promised you this, that, and that. Well, surprise, surprise. Authority cannot give it to you in a way that you thought. Remember sextile with Neptune. But also, this is when Venus enters into the sign of Aquarius. So let's move. And she holds the conjunction with Pluto. And now this is a triple conjunction. This is when whatever I said until now sinks in even emotionally. Pluto conjunct, let's just look at Venus without emphasizing Mars right now. This is where the attraction, whatever we get very powerfully, almost obsessively attracted to, that speaks volumes. In any way, Aquarius, the duality of it. But this is where we need to look at it in a Saturnian way. the truth behind it, and what we can use, how we can use that. Because this energy is not meant to defeat us. This energy is meant to push us into the right direction. This energy is when the universe says, well, I can no longer give you time to figure it out. If you didn't figure it out, or depending on how you figured it out, well, this is my take on it. Go ahead and, this is when it let's say that you're on a ski resort, and the universe is the trainer, how you call it, the instructor. You know the theory already, and you know the basic exercises, and you're still blocked up and afraid to go down the hill, and the instructor pushes you. The instructor knows that you can do it because it has years of experience. It can simply judge when a person can actually handle the situation and who can. But it knows that you can. So this is where have the self-trust. So it pushes you down the slide because it knows that you can handle it. And when you're down there, you are also joyous because yes, I could do it. And the fear is gone. So this is where trust the self. You must trust the self regardless what is being revealed in this Venusian way. But it's also money. Big money. Pluto and Venus, the two monies. What does this mean? Well, on one hand, this will trine the moon in Gemini. Not at this moment as you see it on the screen, a few hours earlier, but communication. This is where good news, but the goodness of the news might be invisible to you. You might perceive it as bad news. You might feel it as bad news because of fear, but actually as good news. Go and do it. Again, self-trust, but rooted in realness, not fantasy, not illusion, not the positive self-talk, which is sometimes really illusionary. This is where you can actually do something, go and do it. And big money on the world stage. Maybe we get some news of an imminent financial collapse. We need to ask ourselves, even if it's true, let's say, even if their prediction or whatever is actually true, financial collapse globally, or what we had in 2009, a reverberation of that. Why does that matter? Well, it really, really matters because let's say that it's true and it's imminent. Can it truly destroy our lives? Can it truly do something all that bad to us? Or will it actually set us free? Will it actually return us to an infinitely healthy minimalism? Will it actually disconnect us from all those people who are there to use us? Not necessarily financially, but many times being able to float with the rest of people actually gives us certain connections which on a soul level mean nothing to us. I'm not saying that they're necessarily harmful, but it's futile. And us being catapulted out, sometimes a financial fall is the saving grace of so very many people. Many times the fall is, and this reminds me of the best possible example. Venus is Ishtar, right? This reminds me of Venus's legend, where Venus had to descend into hell to rescue her. Some legends say that her sister, the goddess of death, if I'm not mistaken, anyway, a destructive force, tricked her to steal her power and stuff like that, to dethrone her. Other legends say that her sister needed help because she was grieving the death of her husband. So anyway, Ishtar needed to address the situation. She went down to hell, the divine feminine. She lost all her power, all her garments, all her symbols, her beauty basically. This isn't about Ishtar's journey to hell. This is actually Ishtar's journey back to the surface after she completed her divine mission. Ishtar, when she re-emerged, was changed and transformed forever. Her new gained wisdom out of the depth of her suffering. And what she learned from the suffering of her sister made her more mature, more real, more compassionate than ever before. So, of course, she dethroned her husband, who was not very faithful to her. In any other way, would she have stayed in the surface world? Her husband would have been forced to be loyal to her. That means total ignorance. Her journey not only revealed to her who she is truly, how powerful she is, but her journey also revealed to her the truth within her husband. So you can imagine, this is what all of us are going to be experiencing. Our uprising, let's say, from our own darkness. For a lot of people, this ends their dark night of the soul, but in not an easy way, in not a joyous way, in a way that your dark night of the soul was imperatively necessary for you to see this truth, whatever betrayal that may be. And after you see the betrayal, you're free. And after then the good things in life come. For a lot of people, this is gonna play out. See the final hard to face truth in love or money or finances, your values, other people, connections, the mission you thought the universe had for you, whatever. After you see the truth, then is the moment you're truly, truly free. Or another example, Persephone and Pluto. Why is Persephone and Pluto very important? Because Pluto and Venus are the archetypes of this, but more importantly, it was Mercury that made the compromise possible. And what resulted from their story? Actually, the four seasons, a balance that could not exist before. So actually, Demetra needed to embrace her most cruel and cold expression in order to bring stability, symbolically speaking, to nature. Because winter has to sterilize everything for a very, very, very good reason. Actually, this is a bit ridiculous. Here where I am, we have a sudden spring, which is never seen before. But that does not do any good because flus and seasonal respiratory diseases are spreading like wildfire. So this is when even the winter has a very powerful role. And even if it's dark, even if it's doomy, even if it's gloomy, we need to respect that. We need to embrace it and see the sacredness in that. So all of us are going to be experiencing this in our own unique way, one way or another. But never forget that Mars is there as well, and it combusts all of this. So makes it very, very clear to us. But much later on, not this week, much later on, Mars and Venus will conjunct in Aquarius without Pluto. That might be the saving grace. Because whatever partnership, because whenever Mars and Venus conjunct, the male and female principle, the active, the passive, that usually forms a bond that unites us to what we really need. And also on this day, Mercury, in itself very okay in the sign of Aquarius, holds, holds a perfect square with its higher octave Uranus. Now, again, this really adds to the reality check. But this reality check comes suddenly, surprisingly, abruptly. But there's another layer to this energy, where collectively speaking, the internet might be disrupted, communication might be cut off, and this is where, in some parts of the world, again, the internet might be banned. Why? Because Aquarius, especially this week, is very Saturnian. And Saturn can also represent that which we take for granted, because the internet is no longer all that much ruled by Uranus. This was passed to Mercury by now. Why? Because it's not all that new, not all that revolutionary. We're so used to its everyday life. So when these two, but something alternative to the internet might actually show its true colors. But of course, Mercury square Uranus, news and debates, debates are very in tune, because Mars in the sign of Aquarius, that means informational war. That means 10 trillion times of information bombarding us, overwhelming us. This is where a lot of people were simply shut down their phone. I can't take this anymore. Or communication, the internet, or their own social spheres will lead them to a mini breakdown, a mini mental breakdown. This is where I can't take this anymore because I'm not hearing my own thoughts. So this energy is going to be very uncomfortable. However, it reveals something. It leads us to a big epiphany, to a big realization, to something really positive, even if it's very uncomfortable. And even on the world stage, something being cut off is actually gonna produce a revolutionary existence of the alternative to that. And Mercury square Uranus in this fashion, this is also about space news, the galactic, cosmic chips, Mercury, the mind, chips in the brain, the morality of that. This will cause quite a powerful disruption. But again, we need that. We need that to see where the tendencies are going. And chances are, with Mars in the picture, we simply won't be able to trust anything, any information that is being handed down to us anymore for a short while. And also, this is where the sun is getting to anaretic position of Aquarius. On the 18th, the sun is already anaretic, which means 29 degrees of a sign, the shadow expression. The sun itself, along with Mars, the two combustive planets, are highly uncomfortable here. They are not able to bring out their highest expression. So this is where the sun anaretic in Aquarius, the collective, the internet, the modern technology, society, friends, even our own hopes and dreams, oh, we don't want them anymore. We want a break from that, if you know what I mean. So the weekend can be a tiny little bit heavy in this sense, but whatever we get disconnected from, and also this is the energy of cord cutting and the purge. However, in a radically opposite way than we're used to it, because these, I don't even know, the past 6, 7 years were all about the past, cord cutting, family karma, relationship karma, past lives, childhood traumas, etc. and there needed to be a lot of cord cutting. This energy, however, comes from the future. This is where it cuts the relationship even before it can turn to something bad for the future. Why? Because we are in certain times where past experiences don't mean all that much, don't have the modus operandi, the wisdom to them, because these energies are so new. No one, not even our ancestors, ever lived anything like so. No one knows how to navigate. No one knows what's right and wrong. So this energy actually, as a divine protection, cuts away those connections which the divine knows will not serve us in the future. Problem is, we don't know. How can we know? But this is where we need to trust the divine with everything that we have, because we, not even our intuition, our foresight, not even our own prophetic abilities, divination abilities, can predict the future at this moment. However, the divine can. So we need to trust it, because what connection is not working in our lives, that chances are might be removed. So I'm so very sorry for this very long horoscope and for the level of depth that I had to go into, but this will be so important for a lot of us, regardless if this dichotomy of Aquarius is playing out in our career, our everyday lives, health, where some people have to decide, am I going to an operation or not? Is this medical treatment good for me or not? Is this miracle cure substance good for me or not? Then relationships. Am I going to risk it with this person or not? Do I love my husband, wife truly in a heart-based way, or am I just using them, or vice versa? This will answer us certain questions that we have a dilemma within us for years. So this is very, very important. And again, these planets, Venus and Mars, activate that very, very fated 0 degree of Aquarius, the new paradigm, in a way they have not done before, because Pluto's presence here. So, and needless to say, we cannot forget the North Node conjunct Chiron, the wounds that are going to play out individually and collectively on the world stage. However, those wounds are necessary for truth, for alignment, and for power. Again, if you're guided to check out my special recording exactly with this theme, Chiron and North Node conjunction, feel free to do so, and I'm going to link to it below. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for all the love, all the support, all the beautiful comments and emails that I received. Until next time, bye for now.